Welcome to Rankings Reaction presented by Allstate. It is a dawn of a new era in the college football world with the expanding conferences, the expanding transfer portal, all leading to the expanding 12-team playoff. Alongside Matt Sims, I am Sam Ravech. We are here to break it all down with you over the course of the next 30 minutes. We got some really special guests joining us as well. Trevor Matich is standing about 12 feet away. He will hop on the show in a matter of minutes, as well as Manuel, who was just down at the ACC Championship last night. Before we get to the bracket, which has been revealed already, Matty, what are you most looking forward to in this new era, the new format of the 12 teams?
I'm really looking forward to the first round and just these home field advantage games, right? And we, as you've noted and said, we're at a great stat, right, for everyone to know. All these teams have lost at home. So to see them defend home field in a playoff scenario like this, really excited to see those matchups, see these teams on the road and how they do. And we got some great ones, too, with southern teams going to play up north. And I hope it's cold as possible in those football games, because I think that just makes more entertaining television.
Going to be absolutely freezing. All right, so without further ado, here is what the 13-member committee decided the 12 best teams were in the field. There was arguably, I think, less drama with the 12 teams than there was with the 4. But the biggest question facing the committee over the last 12 hours, SMU, what do you do with them after their loss, a devastating loss in the ACC Championship game? Would they be penalized for playing in a conference championship game? The answer is no. SMU gets in the field as that 11 seed. As a result, Alabama, a 3-loss team, is out. There was also some debate about who should get that final bye in the quarterfinals. Would it be Arizona State? Would it be Boise State? Turns out Clemson kind of decided that for everybody. Clemson now at the 12 seed as the 5th highest ranked conference champion. The teams with the 4 byes, Arizona State, Boise State, Georgia, the SEC champions, and Oregon. Whew. Wow.
Man, we did it. We made it. We survived. And you know what? We actually weren't that far off yesterday when we were kind of making it up on the fly. We had a few ridiculous points, but we got the 4 teams that were going to get the bye, so that was exciting. But, you know, all in all, what do you think? I'm not too disappointed with what the committee did here.
I don't think so, and obviously the debate, and we'll have it right now, Alabama and SMU. That's going to be the talking point that will be permeated throughout the college football world. I just am of the opinion that, look, we're debating against teams that have flaws on the back end of the bracket. I don't think there was really a right or wrong answer, but do you think the committee got it right by putting SMU in and leaving Alabama out?
Our big question mark, I think, the other day is how does SMU look in this bowl, in the championship game, right, against Clemson? And the fact that they battled back, scored 24 in the second half of this football game, and really won by some unbelievable plays by the Clemson Tigers that are late, and the long field goal was just absolutely, I mean, what a moment for the Tigers. But I think the way that SMU battled back into that football game and only losing by 3 really was the difference in them making the playoffs and not being left out. And really, Alabama, you had an opportunity, you had the control of your destiny, and the loss to Oklahoma on the road was really the reason why you're not in the playoff
There's not going to be any, I don't think, wasted tears outside of Tuscaloosa for Alabama not being in the playoff this year, I don't think, because, like you said, they had the opportunities. They were 2-touchdown favorites at Vanderbilt, 2-touchdown favorites at Oklahoma.
That's right.
And they lose both of those games. So
and fans, I think, out there, right, there's 2 things. I think they have Alabama fatigue, right? And I think they have SEC fatigue, right? And I think right now there's a lot of fans out there that are just excited to see something new that we haven't seen before, and that's SMU. And Kevin Jennings and the crew, they're an exciting team. They bring a lot of entertainment value to the game.
At the half, though, that game was 24-7.
That's right.
And it
didn't look good.
No, it did not look good. But, like, if that game had continued to go that way, would that have changed your opinion on the outcome?
Yeah, and that's where I said just, you know, last night, it was going to be really important for SMU to play well and win that football game and or lose in a close one. And that's where it's difficult to say, but I thought that's how the committee would see this football game as well. For Clemson, on the other hand, one thing that we discussed and I think was really important, they have played a tough out-of-schedule conference, right? And one, of course, is a rival with South Carolina, but the other one is to start the season against Georgia, who is the number 2 seeded team in the country. Those games favored them extremely well to be battle-tested and ready to go here late in the year for now going on the road to Texas. So the debate will be, and we heard Coach Saban earlier say, just what does the future look like for some of these college teams and how they schedule? All right, do we expand the conference play? That's definitely one. But, you know, it did favor Clemson with those tough football games playing against those SEC opponents. Although they lost 2 of them, it still will favor them being more prepared and battle tested.
And we heard after the game, too, you see that some of the reactions from Nick Saban. He said, you know, if we don't take strength of schedule into consideration, is there any benefit to scheduling good games in the future? It's a valid question to ask.
It is. But he also said he thought the committee got it right.
Yes.
And got the 12 best teams in. So
right.
He believes at the moment that SMU is playing better football than Alabama. He said it without saying it.
Yep.
But that is the truth of the situation. When I watched Alabama on film the last 2 weeks and how they performed, I was not impressed by what I saw. I love that, too. We got Arthur in there. But, you know, that is the truth of the situation right now.
All right, we're going to absolutely have more of this discussion, and we have a great person to talk about it with EJ Manuel, ACC Network analyst, coming on in just a bit. Let's move over now to the Big Ten and also the SEC. The two teams that lost those conference championship games, Penn State and then Texas, right? What was going to happen to those teams? How far were they going to fall? Turns out they are both going to be hosting first-round games in the playoff. Correct, incorrect decision by the committee there?
I thought that was interesting, but I think what we're seeing from the committee is that they are valuing teams that played in the conference championship. So we were worried here as we were getting closer and closer to this final selection day. Will the teams that play in this, conference championship, are they going to be, in a bad position if they lose ugly? Will they be kicked out of the committee altogether? And I think by the way that they battled in basically one-score games, right, hard-fought football games all the way to the end in the fourth quarter there, it just shows that the committee values teams that participated in the championship game. And they are deserving of, I think, home field games right here.
I think there was a little bit of surprise, at least for me, seeing Texas at the 5 spot, because I think we, at the outset,
the coveted 5 spot.
The coveted 5 spot, which actually turns out, and we'll break down the bracket a little bit later, that 6 spot isn't all that bad either, where Penn State is. But I was surprised a little bit that Texas only fell to that 5 spot. A lot of people had Penn State kind of slotted into that spot, and with Texas, who did they beat? That whole conversation at the end of the year, they lose both games to Georgia. So that was another discussion that we're going to have. Let's talk about the 4 byes. Arizona State, Boise State. Reese Davis brought it up in the linear show. This is something that may change come next year because you had the 12th ranked team in Arizona State. You had Boise State, who was, I believe, ranked 10th maybe or 9th. They get the first round byes because they were one of the 4 highest ranked conference champions. Arizona State, to their credit, will start here. Kenny Dillingham and his team picked to finish last in the Big 12 this year. Coming off of NCAA sanctions and violations, they only won 3 games each of the last 2 years, and here they are. But this is what makes the 12-team playoff really cool, is seeing stories like that.
Yes, it does, and really just congratulations to the Sun Devils. They left no doubt for sure with the way that they played in that championship game, and Cam Scattaboo, look forward to seeing him again, in a great matchup and the way that he runs. But we can't, of course the debate has been the strength of schedule, all these things. Who would have thought Arizona State would have had the season they had? Who would have thought that Cignetti and Indiana would have had the season they had?
Nobody.
And this was something that they discussed on the linear show too, right? It's very difficult for us to predict, right? Preseason rankings, what I've learned in the 2 years that I've done this business, I don't pay attention to those anymore, right? Because as the season plays out, we just gather more information and experience on who is good and who's not. And for us in college football, I think it's unpredictable.
And the transfer portal is the ultimate neutralizer in all of this because you really don't know. Teams change every single year. And Arizona State, a great example of it. Indiana as well, with all the players that Coach Sig brought over from JMU. All right, ESPN.com, that's where you go. ESPN.com/All-State Playoff Predictor to predict who is going to win the playoff. You can also kind of toggle around there and play with and forecast who's going to get the job done in the first round. So ESPN.com/All-State Playoff Predictor to predict the college football playoff. Last night, Penn State and Oregon played an incredibly good game, in a game in which many people thought Oregon was going to run away with it. Penn State came back, and they made it an interesting game. Speaking of interesting, that is exactly what the post-game sound is.
You get to be a part of games like this. I think you start to think intrinsically about the journey that you've been on and being there. But what brings me joy is the people that you love that get to enjoy the journey with you.
How is this a How's this a smart setup? I got no issue with them celebrating, but this is kind of a JV setup.
We're going to bring in Trevor Matich. Let's take a look at our all-state playoff predictor. Look, Trevor, you look at it here, chances to win the national championship. Who's your favorite?
Yeah. Oh, boy, that's a tough one. I think you've got to go with Oregon to win the national championship just because they've been consistent. They haven't really fallen off. Now, their defense has struggled against the best offenses that they've faced. Ohio State scored over 30, Boise scored over 30, and now Penn State just hit that threshold as well. And so you can make a case that against the better defense or offenses, their defense would be struggling. But at the same time, that would almost be nitpicking when you compare them to flaws on the other teams they'll have to face.
Yeah. We were just having the SMU Alabama discussion there. And I think in many respects, conference championship games were kind of like, it was like a case that was being decided by a jury. What's the importance of conference championship games going forward? Did the committee get it right by putting SMU in?
Well, based on what they favored, yes. When they kept Penn State over Ohio State in the ranking, even though Ohio State beat Penn State head-to-head, that told me that they were not going to punish, even though Ward Manuel, the committee chairman, said that punish isn't a word that they come up with, that they use, but they weren't going to downgrade losers of conference championship games as much as they might in the regular season for a loss. And so the fact that they kept Penn State ahead of Ohio State told me that they were not downgrading conference championship losers as much as they might. And the fact that SMU came roaring back from a 17-point fourth quarter deficit to put that game in position to go to overtime and win it, that means that the committee is valuing those conference championship games. And so because of that, they got it right. If they valued the quality wins, then they got it wrong.
Yeah.
But here's the problem. You can't have both. You got to pick one or the other, and what are you going to value the most? Quality wins or how good or bad your losses were, because Alabama has a horrific loss, that loss at Oklahoma where they didn't manage to score even a touchdown. And then Alabama's out. If it's quality wins, then Alabama beat Georgia. They beat South Carolina, something that SMU is not able to do. In that case, the committee's wrong. Right. But then if you don't downgrade teams for losing in a conference championship game, then they're right.
Yeah, right.
So it just depends on what they like.
And the criteria in which the committee is kind of figuring all of this out, we'll see if that changes. Again, this is all kind of a malleable process as we go forward in this new era of college football. There are so many great first-round matchups as well, and first, too. Clemson, Texas. They've never played on the football field together at the same time. What's your favorite first-round matchup that you're looking forward to?
I'm looking for Ohio State, Tennessee. Ohio State.
My man.
Yeah, you got that?
Let's go.
Yeah. Ohio State is maybe the most talented team in the country, if healthy. Now, everybody's banged up at this point.
Right.
But remember that in the Oregon game in September, Ohio State lost their potential future first-round draft choice left tackle Josh Simmons to injury. The backup left tackle went in, played the next game against Nebraska. The team struggled to run the ball, to move the ball at all, and that backup left tackle got hurt late in the Nebraska game. So Ohio State moved the starting left guard to left tackle, the backup center to left guard. Then the starting center gets hurt. He's going to be drafted probably as well. So the starting left guard, backup center moved to starting center.
Who's on first base?
Right.
Right.
And so they have a freshman playing left guard. And Tennessee has one of the best rushing defenses in the nation. And so that's going to be a very interesting matchup.
And I love that matchup. And, for me, I'm excited about that because I know that's the strength of our football team. And they were talking about it on the Linear Show earlier how, Greg made this great point, right? The struggling offensive line and what we've seen from this offense and how they have failed to get their offense going through running the football with their two talented running backs, I think plays into the hands of Tennessee. Even though being on the road, you have to give a slight edge to the Tennessee defensive front in that matchup.
Sure, but here's the flip side to that one, though. That Ohio State's defense has been playing lights out.
Oh, lights out.
They've been fantastic.
No doubt.
And Tennessee, their offense is known as a high-flying, fast-paced, deep strike passing attack, right? They were that in non-conference play early in the season, but during SEC play, this Tennessee passing offense was not a deep strike, dangerous passing offense. They did better later in the season, but now they're facing maybe the best secondary and maybe the best pass rush combination that they will have seen all year. So that's going to be another interesting part. Ohio State, I think, will have trouble moving the ball, but Tennessee is going to be in a lot of danger if they try to push it down the field.
That's a great point.
Ohio State and Tennessee facing off for the first time since the 1996 Florida Citrus Bowl. So it's been a little while since those two teams have played. All right, last one before we get you out of here, Trevor. Maybe a team that's flying a bit under the radar that you think could make some noise in the first round, or do you think everything's going to go chalk?
Well, it's hard to say it's going to go chalk, but I would suggest this, that people have stopped talking about Indiana since Ohio State whooped them. And the reason Ohio State stopped them so cold was that the Buckeyes pass rush didn't give Curtis Rourke, the quarterback for Indiana, any time to throw it all.
Right.
He's good under pressure. But there's a difference, as you know, as a quarterback, between being under pressure and not having any time at all to do anything at all.
I know it very well.
Yeah. That's I'm sorry, too soon?
Too soon.
But people stop talking about Indiana. Now, Notre Dame has a very good defensive front, very good pass rush. But if they're able to protect Rourke, then I think that passing attack of Indiana is legitimately one of the best in the nation. And if he has any time to throw at all, that's going to be a very interesting matchup.
I agree. And I also will say a lot of people kind of wrote off Clemson after they lost to Georgia in the first week of the regular season. I think I would be shocked if everything goes chalk in the first round, but we will be watching intently as the college football playoff commences in a couple of weeks. Trevor, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
We were talking about the ACC Championship in Charlotte. It was the only championship game that was played outside. EJ Manuel will join us in just a bit. But both coaches, after that game, made pleas for this to be a two-bid league.
What a game. Listen, that's a playoff football team. SMU, they better be in the dang playoffs. What a comeback by those guys. But listen, I'm proud of our guys. We fought all night to get back here, to get a 10th win, to win this thing for the 8th time in 10 years, and head to the playoffs for the 7th time. Man, I'm just the heart of our guys.
It'd be criminal if we're not in. So it would be it would be wrong. It'd be wrong on so many levels, not just our team. It'd be wrong to what college football stands for, to what it is. I mean, we just played a playoff game basically out there and played pretty dang good. We were in. We could have not showed up, and according to what we were told Tuesday night, we'd be in. So we showed up, and we competed our butts off, and I don't know. I don't know what to say. They don't care what I say, but we should be in. They know we should be in, so we'll see what happens.
We care what you say, Rhett Lashley. We care what you say. We now welcome in EJ Manuel, fresh off a flight up from Charlotte. Didn't get any sleep. Nobody really got any sleep last night. But before we get into kind of the fallout, I guess you could call it, from this game, how about the actual game? I mean, this was one of the best games of the entire season.
It was a fantastic game. It was what you expected a championship type of game to be like.
Right.
There was adversity for the team that came in somewhat as a favorite with SMU. The first half looked like they were maybe just not used to being in that moment, truthfully. Clemson jumped out on them, got some short fields early, went up, 2 or 3 touchdowns early in this football game. And I really thought Cade Klubnik, the Clemson quarterback, played excellent. He was flawless in this game. Of course, nobody's perfect, and Matt and I know this, but the way that he handled the situations, the way that he knew when to take off, his decisiveness of where to go with the football throughout that entire game and the entire 60 minutes, even the last drive to get them in field goal range, that pass, he looked off the safety, came back to his left and hit Antonio Williams on like a deep curl route. Now they run that. You know, we used to practice it all the time.
Hey, chains play right there,
Absolutely.
Man. Chains.
It was excellently done and championship caliber football from both teams.
That's right. And I think that was the biggest difference we saw in some of these championship games, right? Kirby Smart and Dabo Swinney, guys that have played in big-time games like this, manage the game, end-of-game situations like to perfection. And that's why Dabo's going again, because he's been there, he's done that, and he knows how to manage those end-of-game situations.
All right, let's get to the elephant in the room, I guess. SMU in, Alabama out. We got EJ Manuel here to discuss it. Look, I said it earlier when we were talking with Trevor. It felt like conference championship games were on trial, essentially, and the committee decided there is still an importance to playing in a conference championship game. What do you make of how the committee decided everything and SMU now being in the field?
The committee did the right thing, because ultimately if you penalize SMU for earning the right to play for a conference championship in their first year in that conference. Let's not forget about that. They were in the American last year.
And they haven't lost in the conference.
And they haven't lost in the conference.
That's right.
They were undefeated. So you cannot knock them for making it there and then losing the game. And look, The thing about college football this year in 2024 that I've noticed, there's parity everywhere.
Yes.
Right.
Everybody has a good team. Everybody, for the most part, has a solid quarterback. I think Kevin Jennings at SMU is a future star. So they competed well enough. Now, look, if they'd have lost this game by 2 or 3 touchdowns, I don't think they're in. I think that would have gave the committee the reason to say, hey, Alabama, you guys go ahead and you kind of earned it by sitting at home. But ultimately, they came back. They showed that they have championship caliber. And also the things that Rhett Lashley said after that game were important as well. He kind of set the tone saying, hey, look, really doesn't matter what I say, but here's what I think. And my team still deserves a chance to play in the 12-team playoff.
And just a quick question. I know we haven't dove too deeply into this matchup, SMU-Penn State, but just like for an SMU football team to go into Happy Valley and to get a win there, what does that look like for them?
Oh, man. Well, for one, they can't turn the ball over.
Right.
Because, of course, if you allow this Penn State defense to pin their ears back, start rushing the passer,
right,
it's going to be a long day. I'm assuming that game will be at night. It's a weekday game. It's going to be cold. Now, I've been to Dallas twice. I've been a bunch when I was playing, but also I've been to Highland Park a few times.
Yep. Right.
Weather's still pretty mild.
It's
still pretty
nice.
So that is something that they're going to have to work with. But ultimately, look, SMU, don't just look at the offense. They have a really good defense, too. They have a top 5 defense in the ACC.
Yep.
Guys that can fly around, Elijah Roberts, Jafari Harvey, they can get after the passer as well.
Yeah.
So as long as you stop the Penn State run, don't allow them to rush for 150, 160, and keep the time of possession in their favor.
260 like they did in the Big Ten Championship.
Exactly. Make them earn it. Make them earn it. Make them earn some third down and longs.
Right.
And SMU will be in that ballgame.
Very opportunistic team, north of 20 turnovers forced. They got 4 defensive touchdowns scored as well. So this is a very dangerous team going into Happy Valley, looking to make it Sad Valley. How about Clemson? A team that I just mentioned, I think a lot of people forgot, wrote off, stopped watching.
Hey, after the Louisville loss, I definitely was like,
after the Louisville loss.
After the Georgia loss, let's be real. I mean,
you're right.
Going back to week 1, I know me watching them, I felt like they weren't ready. Like, I was like, okay, this game is where I'm going to kind of measure Clemson as far as the offseason of how they finished last year, beating Kentucky in a bowl game and coming into 2024.
Right.
And they didn't play well. Georgia blipped. Yeah. And so ultimately, for them to come back and not allow that one loss to turn into a whole bunch more, they play better football. And again, this young man has been grown. He's grown so much as a passer, as an anticipator, and as a leader. And so, as a fellow ACC quarterback, I'm really happy for Cade Klubnik.
One of the most improved players, I think, in all of college football this year, for sure. He's up there.
How about the ceiling for Clemson? Because we heard Dabo postgame talking on your guys' show saying, the scary part about us is we haven't even played great this year. So what's the ceiling for Clemson?
And they haven't played great in all 3 phases. That's the other part, too. So they might have played great on offense, but not on defense. They might have played really good on defense, not on offense that day.
Yeah.
That might be the most dangerous team now in the playoff. And, guys, the way I see some of these first-round buys, I don't know if that's really a good thing, because how many times you see a wild card team in the NFL play that first game,
tell these guys all
and they
the time.
get hot. We always know that. So rhythm and confidence go a long way. And so Clemson is a very dangerous team, and now they have the confidence. And the other part, too, they lost in tragic fashion to their rival, South Carolina last week. And you didn't feel like that carried over into the next week. That's maturity from a football team when you can snap and clear and move on to the next week and handle your business. Because, again, they were playing with their back against the wall. SMU had house money. SMU was pretty much going to be in whether they won or lost, as we've seen with the loss. Clemson, if they'd have lost that game, they're sitting at home.
And we know how talented South Carolina's defense is and how good Lenora Sellers is. And he's another future star, like a Kevin Jennings.
Well, how about Texas's defense?
No doubt. And that's where I feel like Clemson, they're not going to be overwhelmed, I don't think, by the game and the situation. Since they played Georgia, and I know they lost, but still, that experience and then having that game against South Carolina and losing it in the fashion that they did, EJ makes a great point. Like, I think this team will be ready to go, and they'll be sharp in this one.
Texas, like all of the other teams that are hosting games in the first round, have all lost at home. So it's not an unprecedented thing to think that Clemson could go in there and make some noise. EJ, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Get some sleep, by the way.
Seriously.
We'll figure it out.
You look great, though.
You got any sleep.
No sleep.
All right. There were some great championship weekend games. Here is a sound from it.
The Arizona State Sun Devils, they are in the new 12-team college football playoff.
I was born for this.
Overtime to decide the Southeastern Conference Championship. Carson Beck coming back in the game. They hand it to him. Touchdown! Georgia ACC champions!
And Oregon is going to defeat Penn State and win the Big Ten Championship. SMU battling from behind. Jennings, side of the end zone. Touchdown! That one is good! At the buzzer! Clemson wins the ACC!
You're watching Rankings Reaction presented by Allstate. Here are the teams listed by conference this year. The Big Ten getting 4 in, the SEC on the verge of getting 4 in, but Alabama gets the boot because Clemson and the ACC become a 2-bid league. Boise State out of the Mountain West, Arizona State, the lone team out of the Big 12.
And those independents, Notre Dame.
Those independents, that's right. All right, here's the bracket. Here
Yes,
it is.
Sir. Here we go.
Let's break it down here and talk about some of these matchups before we start putting teams in. I want to start here. We mentioned it, first time these two teams have ever played.
Yeah.
Clemson has not had great history against the SEC, specifically this year.
Of course.
What do you make of this matchup?
All right, so let's throw the first game out, Georgia, first game of the year. Too early to tell, right? And for a lot of football teams, right? But played really well against South Carolina, which we thought was one of those teams that was deserving to be in the playoff because of the hottest team in the SEC. I really like this matchup for Clemson. I think that they can do a lot of good things offensively. Like EJ was just saying, Cade Klubnik is playing fantastic football. His quick decision-making, his ability to run and scramble, I think is something that would give any defense fits, right, in this matchup. So big thing for Texas, keep Cade in the pocket. Don't let him get into scramble mode or use his legs to hurt you. The other thing that I find is interesting, too, Texas' secondary is phenomenal. It really is.
Yeah.
They can lock up about anybody.
Mukuba was ridiculous.
Mukuba was a one-man mission, just decapitating people, quite literally, actually, last night. So that's going to be a really interesting tell to see. Can Clemson get open consistently versus Texas? Will Texas kind of go more the press man look or quarters look, right? So it'll be curious to see how they play that one.
So here's just a look at the Texas resume this year. Again, 11-2, both losses to the same team.
Right.
The strength of schedule, I think, is a concern that a lot of people have for Texas this year. Considering where they are now, what are some of the things that Sark is going to be cooking up against this Dabo team and this defense for Clemson that has been a little bit up and down this year?
Yeah, well, I mean, I want to say just for big picture for Dabo, right, when they play Texas, right, is can they run the football? Can they control the line of scrimmage consistently, right? For Texas, on the other hand, we've seen a little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde approach to their own running game. You know, Wisner's been playing great, but we saw in 2 matchups versus Georgia, unable to just really get their offensive line and the running game going. So that's a big concern. You know, so really what it comes down to in a lot of these situations, right, it's just kind of like what we do in the NFL. Which quarterback do you trust more to make the extra play or two to win the game, or the player to not make the big-time mistake? But you know, for this one, we got 2 great offensive minds, Riley and Sarkisian. We're going to see some awesome, just aggressive play calling and stuff like that. Texas, I thought, did a great job getting people open over the middle consistently against Georgia last night. Very impressive how they improved from that first time around. So uncommon opponents, but a lot of game film to go off of and build their game plans for.
And let's not forget what really started the comeback, if you will, for SMU last night was Jennings with his feet.
No doubt.
They got a guy that can do that really well.
For sure.
So, all right, let's pick this game. Who do you think has the edge?
Oh, all right. I'm going to go with, I think Texas has the edge, being at home, and really I think just Sark in that offense. And really where I want to go to mainly, I think just on the back end coverage-wise, they'll be able to cover really well. Barron, Mukuba, like you mentioned, doing a fantastic job on the back end covering. So I think that they'll do a really good job of limiting big plays in the Clemson passing game.
All right, next here, Tennessee, your boys going to Columbus to play in the shoe. This is going to be a really, really fascinating game to watch. The one area where Ohio State has some question marks is on their offensive line.
For sure.
That may be the strong suit on the defensive line for Tennessee, right?
It really is the strength of this team. Tim Banks and this defensive unit really are the star of the show. We always kind of think about just the offense, this high-flying. Well, that's not the case. Dylan Sampson is really the best weapon they have on offense, and how he goes and how the offensive line run blocks for him will dictate the success that they have. They did have a really good high-flying numbers against Vanderbilt passing-wise, but it was essentially the same concept 4 times in a row that led to big football plays. Ohio State is going to limit those plays, specifically that they ran against Vanderbilt that got so many people open. So can they create a few game plan plays, right, to get open, to help their young quarterback with that environment, with that pass rush? You know, the edge definitely goes to Ohio State for being the more complete team, but what Ohio State offense will we see? Will we see the offense that had the good game plan plays against Penn State, or will we see that flat offense that we saw against Michigan and kind of get tight and constricted with how they call the football game?
All right, let's hit the X here. We'll pick pick these games. Tennessee, Ohio State.
Tennessee, Ohio State.
Unbiased, Maddie.
Unbiased. I mean, if I'm going like just straight up team for team here, like I think Ohio State is the better overall football team.
Okay.
I think Nico and them, they're not going anywhere. I'm excited for them.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be a really good football team for years to come. I just think that for this first round matchup, this might be too tall of a task for that passing against that secondary. And that's something that Trevor also alluded to as well.
Right. Nico, they're going to be around for a while.
They
All
are.
right. Two losers in their conference championship game. I don't know if that's the way to start.
Say it like
but
that, man.
Two teams that did not win their championship game.
Right.
How's that? SMU and Penn State. This game going to be in Happy Valley. It's going to be freezing. It's going to be a fun game to watch. I think with Rhett Lashley and his team, again, with Kevin Jennings as their quarterback, they've only lost one game.
That's right.
That was in the conference championship game. Penn State put up a fight against Oregon, the best team in the entire country this year. What do you make of this matchup?
I really like this matchup a lot. I think it's one of the more interesting matchups that we'll see. And SMU, very aggressive on defense, right, at times, right, throughout the season. So they're not afraid to get after it, leave their corners on an island, and get after the passer. Drew Aller did a lot of really good things against Oregon. Now, he did make the mistake at the end. He did throw the interception there in the football game as well that led to an Oregon touchdown. So big picture-wise, I like Penn State. The fact that they ran the football so effectively in that Big Ten championship game really gives me a lot of optimism for this football team. I say they defend home turf again. So I'm going homers right now in this first round. Penn State with the victory over SMU.
The other thing I'm just looking at here, and this is a byproduct of having 12 teams in the playoff.
Yeah.
8 of the 12 teams have multiple losses.
Right.
Like, it's a toss-up between
We really could make a case for every one of the teams that we picked against right now. And really, maybe the one that I would debate the most would be Clemson, Texas.
I would agree with you.
You know, that was one where I really can see Clemson winning that football game again because of how well Cade Klubnik has been playing. You know, and this is the one, right, that I am so sorry. I really like Notre Dame a lot. I think they're a really good football team, and I think because of the way that I just said that, you know where I'm going to go with this. I think in a one-off football game, with how Indiana performed against Ohio State, I think that really prepared them for this football game.
Yeah.
Notre Dame's defensive line kind of concerns me at times. The fact that they were pushed around by USC so efficiently on the ground and in through the air, I think that Indiana actually advances here on the road and beats Notre Dame. I think Indiana, if they can stop this running attack by Notre Dame, which is so impressive with Love, Price, and Leonard at quarterback, of course, right? If they slow down the running attack, I think that gives them a tremendous advantage and win a low-scoring football game.
Okay, you're going to pick the 1-4 matchups. I'll pick the 3-2.
I'm picking 1-4?
Yeah, then we'll go through it here.
All right, so for this one, all right, let's go. I'm going to take Oregon again. All right, that was a hesitation, though, for sure. And I'm going to go with Texas.
Okay.
And we're going to get that matchup right there.
Okay. Now, again, reminder, these quarterfinals were at bowl sites, which, quote-unquote, are neutral sites.
Right.
But we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah.
I'm going to take Boise State's road comes to an end after one game.
Okay.
And then, I think Georgia has shown that even with some of the warts, they are still a very good football team and can win with
and even with the question mark of quarterback, I'm
okay with that. And plus, you have 24 days, I think, for Georgia to rest up until they play that game.
Listen, I'm a quarterback. I've seen hits like that before.
That was not good.
I would not be shocked if Carson Beck is done for the year.
Yeah,
I would not be shocked. So I think it's going to be Gunner as the guy going forward. The crazy thing about that is that I feel like the team played a little bit harder with Garner as the quarterback, and sometimes those random things happen with the football game, right? It just, another boost of energy, guys galvanizing because of injury like that. So I think Gunner actually gives them some good stuff here late in the year. And now for these, all right, so I'm gonna let you pick that one. All right, for this one, all right, I'm going with Texas.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't know why.
Why
honestly.
the upset? You just
I really think that just what they do offensively, my biggest concern, I think Oregon has a talented defense, but like Trevor mentioned earlier in the show, the two good offenses that they've seen, they've given up huge explosive plays. This team can really create a lot of explosive plays. So
and they can stop them on the other end,
that's
too.
True,
that's the other factor.
But I do like Dylan Gabriel a lot, so that's a tough one.
All right, you know what? Screw it. We're going with Penn State.
Wow.
They're making the championship this year.
James Franklin.
We started this entire season saying James Franklin, Penn State, the 12-team playoff was was built for you.
You just didn't want to see the Texas-Georgia matchup again.
I've seen it enough. I've seen enough. All right. Well, that was fun.
I could watch it again, honestly. I thought that was awesome.
We could go for another hour talking all about the bracket. The good news is, though, there will be more digital shows breaking down the path to the championship. Maddie will be on one of those shows coming up in just about, what do we got, like an hour and a half or so?
I guess so. Yeah, I don't know. Wherever they tell me to go, that's where I'll be.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right, so that'll do it for us here momentarily. For Matt Sims, our entire crew, all of our guests, EJ, Trevor, I am Sam Ravech saying so long. Thank you so much for watching Rankings Reaction presented by Allstate.